Deep in the heart of the Amazon, where the dense canopy swallows the sunlight and the earth hums with unseen life, there lies a secret, one so vast, so ancient, it defies belief. For centuries, this jungle guarded its mysteries, hiding the remnants of a civilization that once shaped the land, only to vanish without a trace. But now, thanks to the eyes in the sky, we're peeling back those layers of green, revealing an empire lost to time. This isn't just a story of ruins buried under vines. It's a revelation that rewrites history, proving that even the most impenetrable places can't keep their secrets forever. Picture this: satellites orbiting high above the planet, their lenses piercing through clouds and foliage, capturing something no human eye could see. The images they sent back weren't just patches of trees, they were grids, roads, and plazas, the fingerprints of a society that thrived here long before modern explorers ever set foot in the jungle. How could an entire civilization flourish in such a place, only to disappear so completely? And what does their story tell us about the resilience and fragility of human achievement? The answers are as surprising as they are profound, weaving together technology, archaeology, and a dash of detective work to solve a mystery centuries in the making. This is more than just a tale of discovery. It's a reminder that our planet still holds wonders we've only begun to understand. As we venture into the story of the unknown empire beneath the jungle, you'll witness how science and curiosity collide to uncover truths long thought impossible. From the first flickers of suspicion to the jaw-dropping moment, the satellites revealed their hidden prize. Every step of this journey challenges what we thought we knew about the past. So settle in, because by the time we're done, you'll never look at a map or a jungle the same way again. The Earth has stories to tell, and this one is only just beginning to unfold. For generations, the Amazon whispered its secrets only to those who dared listen. Tribes who passed down stories of towering cities swallowed by vines, and explorers who returned with tales of strange mounds and geometric patterns glimpsed through the green veil. Yet without hard evidence, these accounts faded into legend, dismissed as exaggerations or wishful thinking. The jungle's sheer immensity made traditional exploration nearly impossible. Rivers choked with roots, trails vanishing overnight, and a canopy so thick it turned midday into twilight. Even the most determined archaeologists could only scratch the surface, their machetes and maps no match for nature's fortress. Then came the game changer: satellites equipped with LiDAR, a technology that fires laser pulses through foliage to map the ground beneath. Suddenly, what took lifetimes of backbreaking exploration could be revealed in a single sweep from orbit. The first scans were staggering: not just scattered ruins, but an intricate network of causeways, reservoirs, and terraces spanning thousands of square miles. This wasn't just a village lost to time. It was the blueprint of a sophisticated society that mastered engineering, agriculture, and urban planning in one of the most challenging environments on Earth. What makes this discovery so extraordinary isn't just the scale, it's the audacity. These builders didn't conquer the jungle, they collaborated with it. Their raised fields channeled floodwaters instead of fighting them. Their roads followed the land's natural contours. They transformed what outsiders saw as a hostile wilderness into a thriving heartland, home to tens of thousands at its peak. Yet by the time European ships reached the Americas, this empire had already faded. Its people absorbed back into the forest, leaving behind only whispers and a landscape subtly sculpted by human hands. The real marvel: we're only beginning to decode their legacy. Every new scan peels back another layer, revealing ceremonial plazas aligned with celestial events, or reservoirs so precise they rival modern engineering. Each finding chips away at old assumptions that the Amazon was a pristine wilderness, or that its indigenous cultures lived in isolation. Instead, we're staring at proof of connectivity, innovation, and resilience that forces us to rewrite the story of the Americas. And to think, none of this would have been possible without viewing the jungle from the one vantage point its builders could never have imagined, the stars themselves. Before satellites transformed the game, uncovering ancient civilizations in the Amazon was like searching for a needle in a haystack blindfolded. Archaeologists relied on painstaking ground surveys, cutting through dense undergrowth inch by inch, often missing the bigger picture hidden beneath their feet. A single excavation could take years with no guarantee of finding anything significant. But when satellite technology entered the scene, it didn't just lift the blindfold, it gave researchers X-ray vision. At the heart of this revolution is LiDAR, short for light detection and ranging, a system that fires millions of laser pulses from aircraft or satellites, measuring how long they take to bounce back. The magic happens when those lasers penetrate the jungle canopy, hitting the ground below and creating a detailed 3D map of the terrain. What looks like an unbroken sea of green from above suddenly reveals the ghostly outlines of human activity, straight lines where nature doesn't make them, geometric shapes hinting at plazas, and raised platforms that once held temples or homes. The first time scientists saw these images, it was like watching invisible ink appear under a blacklight. Areas once dismissed as untouched wilderness showed sprawling networks of roads connecting settlements, some stretching over dozens of miles. Reservoirs and canals hinted at sophisticated water management, while terraced fields suggested large-scale agriculture. Suddenly, the Amazon's past wasn't a scattering of isolated tribes. It was a tapestry of interconnected communities, thriving in ways no one had dared to imagine. What's even more remarkable is how quickly this technology overturned old assumptions. For decades, historians believed the Amazon couldn't support complex societies because of its poor soil and relentless climate. But LiDAR revealed just how wrong that was. These ancient builders didn't just survive in the jungle, they engineered it. They enriched the soil with charcoal and compost, creating fertile patches called terra preta that still nourish plants today. They built roads elevated above floodwaters, turning seasonal swamps into highways. Every scan peeled back another layer of ingenuity, proving that this so-called wilderness was once a carefully managed landscape. The real triumph of satellite archaeology isn't just the scale of what it's found, it's the speed. A single LiDAR survey can cover hundreds of square miles in days, work that would have taken generations of ground teams. And because it's non-invasive, it preserves these fragile sites undisturbed, leaving them for future study. Of course, the technology isn't perfect. Heavy rainfall can scatter the lasers, and some features are too subtle to detect without boots on the ground. But for the first time in history, we're not just guessing about the Amazon's past, we're mapping it one laser pulse at a time. This isn't just about rewriting history books. Every discovery reshapes our understanding of what's possible, how civilizations rise and adapt, how they leave their mark on the land, and how easily their stories can vanish. The jungle may have reclaimed this empire, but thanks to satellites, its voice is finally being heard again. And if this much was hidden under just a few patches of forest, imagine what else might be waiting silently beneath the green. The initial satellite images didn't just hint at a lost civilization. They exploded the very idea of what was possible in the Amazon. When researchers first saw the scans, their screens lit up with grids of straight lines crisscrossing beneath the canopy, too precise to be natural. These weren't animal trails or riverbeds, they were roads, some stretching over 25 miles, connecting clusters of plazas and platforms in a vast, interconnected web. The sheer scale of it left archaeologists speechless. Here was evidence of urban planning on par with ancient Rome or the Khmer Empire, hidden under what the world had written off as untamed wilderness. What made these roads extraordinary wasn't just their length, it was their design. Unlike the straight, rigid highways of other ancient cultures, these pathways followed the contours of the land, weaving around hills and marshes with an almost organic fluidity. They weren't fighting the jungle, they were working with it, elevated on berms to stay above seasonal floods, lined with drainage ditches to manage rainfall. These routes revealed a deep understanding of the environment. And they weren't isolated. The scans showed them linking to centralized hubs, wide, circular plazas that likely served as markets, ceremonial sites, or gathering spaces. One such plaza, nearly 500 feet across, sat at the heart of a settlement large enough to house thousands. This was the bombshell. For decades, historians had assumed the Amazon soil was too poor, its climate too harsh to support large, permanent cities. Yet here was proof of a society that didn't just survive, it thrived. The roads suggested trade networks, the plazas hinted at social organization, and the sheer density of structures pointed to populations far beyond what anyone had imagined. Even more startling, the timing. Carbon dating of excavated sites placed this civilization's peak between the years 1200 and 1500 centuries before European contact, and right in the era when medieval Europe was building its cathedrals. The implications rippled far beyond archaeology. Indigenous communities had long spoken of their ancestors' grand settlements, stories often dismissed as myth. Now, science was validating oral histories in the most dramatic way possible, and as researchers dug deeper literally and figuratively, they found more surprises. Buried artifacts showed trade goods from hundreds of miles away, obsidian, pottery, even seeds from cultivated crops. This wasn't an isolated village, it was a cosmopolitan hub, a nerve center in a network that spanned the continent. Yet the most haunting question remained: why did such a sophisticated society vanish? The satellites couldn't answer that, but they offered clues. Some plazas showed signs of rapid abandonment, their last fires left burning. Others were deliberately buried, as if sealed away. Climate shifts, disease, or internal conflict theories abound. But one thing's certain: this empire didn't fade quietly. It left behind a landscape sculpted with intention, waiting centuries for technology to finally reveal its story. And with every new scan, we're reminded that history isn't just written in books. Sometimes it's etched into the earth itself, invisible until the right tools and the right curiosity bring it back to light. The satellite images didn't just reveal roads and plazas, they unveiled an empire's heartbeat. Every causeway, every reservoir, every terraced field was a stroke in a grand design, a testament to a civilization that didn't just inhabit the jungle but reimagined it. Take the causeways, some stretched over 60 feet wide, raised several feet above the forest floor, their surfaces paved with a mix of clay and gravel to withstand centuries of rain. These weren't mere paths, they were arteries pulsing with trade, communication, and ceremony, linking ceremonial centers where rituals might have unfolded under the watch of towering wooden monuments long since reclaimed by the earth. Then there were the reservoirs, engineering marvels carved into the landscape with pinpoint accuracy. Unlike the haphazard ponds of later settlements, these were geometric, perfect rectangles or circles, their edges reinforced with layers of stone and packed earth. Channels diverted rainwater into them, ensuring a steady supply during dry seasons. But what's truly astonishing is their placement. clustered near plazas and elevated fields, suggesting a society that understood hydrology well enough to turn a flood-prone jungle into a managed waterscape. The terraces told another story. Carved into hillsides, they transformed slopes into fertile staircases, each level a microclimate for different crops. Soil samples revealed something even more ingenious: charcoal and organic waste mixed deep into the earth, an ancient recipe for supercharging the notoriously poor Amazonian soil. This wasn't subsistence farming, it was large-scale agriculture capable of feeding thousands, and the layout aligned with celestial markers. Certain terraces faced the sunrise during equinoxes, hinting at a culture that wove astronomy into daily life, perhaps timing plantings or harvests by the stars. What emerges from these scans is a portrait of mastery, not just over nature, but over time itself. The builders planned for generations, their roads resisting erosion, their reservoirs self-cleaning, their fields regenerating. They left behind no grand stone pyramids, no towering ziggurats. Instead, their monuments were subtler, a landscape sculpted to endure, a dialogue between human ambition and ecological wisdom. Yet for all their precision, the empire's disappearance remains its most haunting mystery. The satellites show no signs of invasion, no scorched earth. Instead, there's a gradual fading, roads left unrepaired, reservoirs silted over. Was it climate shifts, disease, or simply a society that chose to dissolve back into the forest, leaving behind a blueprint for survival that modern archaeologists are only now beginning to decode? The jungle guards its secrets well, but with every pixel of satellite data, we're piecing together a truth as profound as it is humbling. This wasn't a wilderness. It was a garden cultivated by hands we're only just learning to see. Who were the architects of this jungle empire? The question lingers like morning mist over the Amazon, tantalizing researchers and historians alike. Unlike the Maya with their carved stelae or the Inca with their quipu records, these builders left behind no grand inscriptions declaring their name to posterity. What remains are fragments, a handful of pottery shards etched with cryptic symbols, tools fashioned from black volcanic glass, and the silent testimony of the earth itself. Each clue is a puzzle piece, but the full picture remains stubbornly out of reach. Some scholars trace threads of connection to the modern-day Guaycurú or other indigenous groups, whose oral histories speak of ancestral cities swallowed by the forest. Their legends describe towering wooden structures adorned with feathers and gold, rulers who communed with spirits, and a time when the jungle was not a wilderness but a tended garden. These stories align eerily with satellite maps, suggesting cultural continuity spanning centuries. Yet without written records, the link remains circumstantial, a tantalizing possibility rather than proof. Other theories venture into bolder territory. Could this have been the work of a civilization entirely lost to history, one that flourished in isolation before vanishing without descendants? The empire's engineering feats, roads that defy erosion, soil enriched by biochar, hint at knowledge distinct from known Amazonian cultures. A few controversial artifacts deepen the mystery: a ceramic vessel depicting a figure in unfamiliar headdress, or a stone tablet covered in undeciphered glyphs unlike any regional script. The most promising clues lie in the land itself. Soil analysis reveals layers of charcoal and organic matter, evidence of deliberate terra preta creation, a technique modern science is only now beginning to replicate. The sheer uniformity of these patches across hundreds of miles suggests centralized knowledge, perhaps even a governing body overseeing land management. But was this a single unified empire or a network of allied city-states sharing technology? The debate rages on. One thing is certain: Whoever they were, they understood the Amazon in ways we're only beginning to grasp. They didn't conquer nature, they conversed with it, turning floodplains into fertile fields and weaving roads through the trees like threads in a tapestry. Their legacy isn't just in what they built, but in how they built, leaving behind a blueprint for sustainability that feels startlingly relevant today. As archaeologists sift through the dirt and linguists struggle to decode those enigmatic symbols, the jungle keeps its secrets close. But with every artifact dusted off, every satellite scan analyzed, we inch closer to putting a name to the hands that shaped this green empire, and perhaps learning why they chose to let the vines reclaim their story. LiDAR isn't just another tool in archaeology's kit. It's a revolution, flipping centuries of assumptions upside down with every scan. Imagine trying to piece together a jigsaw puzzle while blindfolded, only to suddenly have the blindfold ripped away. That's what this technology has done for researchers studying jungles like the Amazon. Traditional methods, machetes, shovels, painstaking grid surveys, could take decades to map a few square miles. But LiDAR, it covers hundreds in days, peeling back layers of foliage like turning the pages of a book. The magic lies in those laser pulses. Each one acts like a tiny probe, slipping between leaves and branches to bounce off the ground below. When stitched together, these millions of data points create a digital twin of the terrain, revealing contours invisible to the naked eye. In one famous case, a single flyover of Honduras' Mosquitia region uncovered not just a few scattered ruins, but an entire urban layout, plazas, pyramids, even what might have been a ball court, all hidden under a canopy so thick, explorers had walked right past it for years. What makes LiDAR so transformative isn't just its speed, but its precision. It catches subtleties ground surveys miss, faint depressions marking long-gone post holes, or barely their ridges that trace the outlines of ancient fields. In Cambodia, this tech exposed Mahendraparvata, a sprawling Angkor-era city swallowed by jungle, complete with an intricate grid of roads and canals. And in Mexico, it revealed over 60,000 Mayan structures, houses, fortresses, ritual platforms, rewriting estimates of the civilization's population and complexity overnight. The implications ripple far beyond individual discoveries. Before LiDAR, archaeologists assumed certain regions were too harsh or remote for large-scale settlements. Now we're staring at proof of interconnected societies thriving where we least expected. Take the Amazon's garden cities, clusters of settlements surrounded by enriched soil and linked by causeways. These weren't isolated villages, they were nodes in a vast network trading goods and ideas across thousands of miles. But here's the real kicker, we've barely scratched the surface. Less than 10% of the world's jungle regions have been scanned this way. Every new survey holds the potential to upend another historical narrative, whether it's in the Congo Basin's unexplored depths or Papua New Guinea's cloud forests. And as the technology evolves, higher resolution, better filtering algorithms, we're not just finding lost cities, we're seeing them in unprecedented detail, down to individual staircases or irrigation channels. Of course, LiDAR isn't a silver bullet. It can't tell us what artifacts lie buried or decipher the stories of the people who built these places. That still requires boots on the ground, brushes in hand. But by guiding archaeologists straight to the most promising sites, it's turning what used to be needle in a haystack searches into targeted treasure hunts. The jungle's secrets aren't just being found anymore, they're practically rising to meet us, thanks to a shower of laser light from the sky. And if this is what we've uncovered in just a few years, imagine what still waits beneath the green. When we think of ancient metropolises, images of Rome's Colosseum or Angkor Wat's towering temples come to mind, structures that dominate landscapes with their sheer grandeur. But this lost Amazonian empire challenges that very definition of urban greatness. Without quarried stone or metal tools, its builders achieved feats just as astonishing, weaving their cities into the jungle's fabric rather than imposing upon it. Where Rome flattened hills to build roads, these engineers worked with the land's natural curves, elevating causeways above floodwaters and terracing hillsides into productive farms. The result, a civilization whose footprint rivaled the classical world's giants in scale, yet left the forest nearly as lush as they found it. Take population. At its height, Rome housed over 1 million people within its walls, a marvel for its time. Satellite data suggests this jungle empire supported comparable numbers, just distributed differently. Instead of one dense capital, it had interconnected urban hubs, each home to tens of thousands, linked by those sprawling causeways. It's a model that feels almost modern, a decentralized network where trade and culture flowed freely between nodes. And while Angkor Wat's reservoirs were engineering triumphs, the Amazon's water systems were no less sophisticated. Their reservoirs, precise and self-cleaning, turned seasonal deluges from a threat into a resource, something even Rome struggled with, as its famed aqueducts required constant maintenance. The real difference lies in materials. The Maya had limestone, the Inca had granite, but this empire built with what the jungle provided: wood, clay, and living plants. Imagine plazas shaded by towering, cultivated palms instead of marble colonnades, or ceremonial platforms lined with fragrant orchids rather than carved reliefs. Their monuments weren't meant to defy time but to harmonize with it, which is precisely why they vanished so completely. While Angkor's stone temples survived centuries of abandonment, these wooden structures returned to the earth, leaving only their subtle earthworks as whispers of past glory. Yet perhaps the most striking contrast is in legacy. Rome's influence echoes through modern law and language. Angkor's temples became pilgrimage sites. This Amazonian empire, though, was forgotten so thoroughly that its very existence was doubted until satellites revealed its bones. That obscurity makes its achievements all the more remarkable. Without contact with other great civilizations, these builders developed urban planning, hydrology, and agriculture independently, proving that brilliance isn't bound by geography. Their story rewrites not just the history of the Amazon, but our understanding of how and where human ingenuity can flourish. In the end, comparing these cities isn't about ranking greatness. It's about expanding our vision of what civilization can look like. Where others left towering stone, this empire left something just as enduring, a blueprint for living within nature's limits, written in the very soil beneath our feet. And as we uncover more, one truth becomes clear: the jungle didn't hide these ruins out of spite. It preserved them, waiting for the moment we'd finally have the tools and the humility to see them for what they were. The fall of this jungle empire is as enigmatic as its rise. No grand battles etched in stone, no crumbling walls scarred by invaders. Instead, the clues are quieter, hidden in layers of pollen, the chemistry of ancient soils, and the eerie silence of abandoned plazas. One leading theory points to climate's cruel hand. Deep in sediment cores drilled from Amazonian lakes, scientists found a troubling shift. Around the year 1500, pollen from towering rainforest trees abruptly gives way to grasses. This wasn't natural succession, it was drought, a mega-drought so severe it may have lasted decades. Imagine reservoirs drying up, crops withering in fields, and those meticulously maintained roads cracking under unrelenting sun. For a society built on water management, such a shift wouldn't just disrupt life, it would unravel the very fabric of their civilization. Yet climate alone doesn't tell the full story. At some sites, artifacts lie scattered as if dropped in haste, a pot half filled with charred seeds, tools left mid-repair. There's no evidence of mass graves or weapon damage, but the abruptness suggests another invisible killer, disease. When Europeans arrived in the Americas, they unleashed plagues that decimated indigenous populations. Could earlier, undocumented epidemics have swept through these jungle cities? Genetic studies of modern Amazonian tribes reveal traces of ancient pathogens, hinting at possible outbreaks that predated Columbus by centuries. Without written records, we're left reading between the lines of soil, of bones, of the spaces between abandoned homes. Then there's the soil itself. Terra Preta, that miracle earth engineered by the empire's farmers, holds its own testimony. In some patches, the charcoal layers stop abruptly, as if the knowledge to maintain them was lost overnight. Other sites show signs of overuse, nutrients stripped, the land pushed beyond recovery. It's a pattern seen in collapsing societies worldwide, a people so adept at bending their environment to their will, they didn't notice when the balance tipped. The truth likely lies in a tangled web of all these factors: drought-strained resources, disease-thinned populations, without enough hands to maintain the reservoirs and roads the system frayed. Some might have migrated, joining neighboring groups whose oral histories speak of great dispersals. Others may have deliberately returned to simpler, nomadic ways, letting the jungle reclaim what it had lent. What's certain is that this wasn't a cataclysm, it was a slow unspooling, a civilization stepping back into the shadows, and perhaps that's the most haunting lesson. This empire didn't fall to invaders or asteroid strikes. It met a quieter fate, one that feels uncomfortably familiar in an age of climate shifts and pandemics. Their story whispers a warning across the centuries. Even the grandest societies are fragile when the land beneath them changes its mind. Satellite scans may map the bones of this lost empire, but they can't show us the heartbeat, the glitter of gold in torchlight, the weight of a carved jade pendant, or the whisper of ink on ancient bark paper. For all their precision, lasers can't penetrate the deepest secrets still tucked beneath the jungle floor. What waits there could rewrite history. Already, excavations have unearthed tantalizing glimpses. A ceremonial urn packed with exotic seeds from distant mountains, a polished obsidian mirror that might have reflected a priest's face during rituals, and delicate pottery painted with geometric patterns that defy interpretation. But these are just fragments of a story begging to be told. Consider the gold. While the Maya and Inca left behind dazzling troves, this jungle civilization's metalwork remains elusive, not because it didn't exist, but because the Amazon devours such treasures. Spanish chronicles describe indigenous tales of golden statues hidden in the forest, and modern miners occasionally stumble upon ornate plaques washed from buried sites. One such discovery, a palm-sized disc etched with a spiral motif, hints at a metalworking tradition far older than previously assumed. Yet without intact tombs or temples to context these finds, each piece is a riddle without an answer. Then there's the pottery. Unlike stone, clay preserves the intimate fingerprints of the artisan who shaped it, soot from long-cooled cooking fires, even residues of vanished meals. A single shard can reveal trade networks like the one found near the Madeira River, its glaze containing minerals from over 800 miles away. But the real prize would be a complete vessel adorned with figurative art, something that could finally put faces to this nameless culture. Imagine uncovering a jar painted with a procession of figures, their clothing, tools, and rituals frozen in time. And what of writings? The Maya left codices, the Inca had quipu knots. This civilization's records, if they existed, likely perished in the humidity, unless they're waiting in some sealed chamber. In 2019, researchers in Guatemala found a Maya mural preserved under centuries of mud. Could similar luck reveal glyphs carved into wood or etched onto metal sheets? Even one sentence in their own words would be worth more than 1,000 satellite images. The most promising clues, though, might lie in the mundane. A child's toy, a healer's herb bundle, or a farmer's worn digging stick, these everyday objects could reveal how people lived, not just how they worshipped or ruled. At a site in Bolivia, archaeologists found a cache of cassava graters, their stone teeth still sharp. Such finds humanize the past, reminding us that empires aren't just built on grand plazas, but on the labor of countless unnamed hands. Every artifact is a cipher waiting to be decoded. A golden ornament might prove contact with the Andes. A scribe's stylus could hint at a lost writing system. Even the absence of certain objects tells a story. Why no weapons at defensive walls? Why no royal tombs amid the plazas? The jungle keeps these secrets close, but with each carefully sifted scoop of earth, we're peeling back another layer of the mystery. And somewhere in that tangled green darkness, the right find, one pottery shard, one engraved tablet, could suddenly make the whispers of the past ring clear. The jungle didn't just hide this empire, it cradled it. While ancient sites in deserts or open plains weathered centuries of wind, war, and treasure hunters, these Amazonian ruins slept undisturbed beneath a living blanket of roots and vines. That dense canopy acted like a time capsule, shielding delicate earthworks from erosion and hiding artifacts from looters who might have stripped other sites bare. Take the ceremonial platforms near the Xingu River. When archaeologists finally reached them, they found pottery shards still stacked as if left yesterday, and seeds from ritual plants scattered across altars, fragile evidence that would have vanished in exposed ruins. But this natural protection came at a cost. The same humidity that preserved wooden carvings in bogs or frozen tombs also accelerated decay here. Without stone to carve their legacy into, the empire's builders relied on materials that the jungle eagerly reclaimed. A wooden totem might last decades, not millennia. Textiles, feathers, even painted murals on clay walls, all dissolved into the soil, leaving behind only ghostly stains in the dirt. That's what makes the surviving traces so precious. A post hole filled with charcoal isn't just a building footprint, it's a snapshot of a vanished home. A scatter of broken tools isn't debris, it's a workshop frozen in time. Now, as researchers peel back the jungle's layers, they face a paradox. Every trench dug, every artifact lifted, exposes these treasures to the very forces the forest once guarded against. Sunlight bleaches delicate pigments, air triggers chemical reactions in metal objects. Even the sweat on an archaeologist's glove can salt away centuries-old residues. The challenge isn't just finding these sites, it's saving them. At one plaza in Bolivia, scientists used 3D scanners to map every inch before excavation, creating digital twins in case the originals crumble. Elsewhere, they're testing biodegradable sealants to stabilize fragile soils without harming the ecosystem. The real urgency, the jungle's shield, is faltering. Deforestation and climate change are altering the Amazon's microclimates, drying out areas that stayed moist for millennia. Looters, armed with satellite images of their own, are closing in. And with every hectare of forest cleared for farmland, another piece of this puzzle risks being lost before it's even found. The race isn't just to uncover history anymore, it's to protect it from the modern world, just as the jungle once protected it from time. Yet in this struggle lies an unexpected gift. The empire's builders understood balance, crafting a civilization that flourished within nature's limits. Now their ruins teach us how to preserve not just the past but the future. Their reservoirs inspire sustainable water systems. Their terra preta soils hint at ways to restore degraded land. Even their disappearance whispers a warning about pushing ecosystems too far. The jungle kept these lessons safe for centuries. Now, it's handing them to us if we're wise enough to listen. Long before satellites pierced the jungle's veil, the stories were already there, whispered around campfires, woven into songs, passed from elder to child in the hush of twilight. Indigenous tribes like the Kuakuro and Yawalapiti spoke of Kuhakugu, the city of the gods, where ancestors walked streets paved with stars and drank from rivers that never ran dry. To outsiders, these were just myths, but when LiDAR revealed those geometric patterns beneath the trees, something extraordinary happened. The lines on modern maps began tracing the same paths as ancient oral histories. A village elder's description of a great plaza where the sun stood still matched the orientation of a ceremonial site detected from orbit. Tales of roads that climbed over floods aligned perfectly with those elevated causeways. The jungle's keepers had known the truth all along. What makes these oral traditions so remarkable isn't just their accuracy, it's their resilience. For 500 years, through colonization, displacement, and forced assimilation, these stories survived. They carried blueprints of a lost world in their details, the way certain trees grew unnaturally straight where posts once stood, or how fireflies clustered over buried ceremonial grounds. One elder's account described a hill that sang when struck, leading archaeologists to a terraced mound ringing with acoustic properties when tested. Another spoke of black earth that made crops grow tall, guiding researchers straight to terra preta patches. These weren't vague legends, they were oral maps precise enough to navigate by. Now, a quiet revolution is unfolding as scientists and tribes collaborate. Where traditional archaeology might dismiss a folk tale as symbolism, teams are cross-referencing stories with satellite data. A Yawalapiti myth about a serpent canal led to the discovery of a sinuous irrigation channel unseen by LiDAR. A ritual dance reenacting the planting of the first garden revealed the seasonal calendar this civilization likely followed. Even seemingly fantastical elements like claims that certain stones glowed at night have yielded clues with phosphorescent minerals found at described locations. The implications ripple far beyond archaeology. These oral histories challenge the very notion of prehistory, proving that societies without written records preserved complex knowledge with stunning fidelity. They force us to reconsider who holds authority over the past, not just academics with satellites, but voices that have carried truth across generations. And as deforestation encroaches on uncharted territories, these stories become urgent guides. A single elder's warning about a valley of bones recently steered researchers away from a landslide-prone dig site. Yet mysteries remain. Some tales describe technologies that defy explanation, like mirrors that showed faraway lands or feathers that could call down rain. Are these poetic metaphors or echoes of lost innovations? The answer may lie in the unlikeliest places. Last year, a team working with the Ashaninka people found a quartz crystal precisely where a creation story placed the eye of the first shaman, its facets aligned to refract solstice light. Coincidence or proof that some truths only reveal themselves when science and tradition walk the same path? The jungle guards its secret still, but for the first time in centuries, it's speaking through more than just lasers and pixels. It's speaking through the keepers of its oldest memories. Unearthing a lost civilization isn't just an archaeological triumph, it's an ethical tightrope. Every artifact lifted from the soil, every plaza mapped by satellites, forces us to ask, who does this past truly belong to? For indigenous communities, these ruins aren't abandoned relics. They're the homes of ancestors, their stories etched into the land long before outsiders arrived with scanners and shovels. Yet for scientists, each discovery holds clues to humanity's shared history, pieces of a puzzle that could rewrite textbooks. The tension between these perspectives isn't just academic, it's a moral crossroads with real consequences. Take the debate over artifacts. When a ceremonial urn or carved figurine emerges from the earth, should it go to a museum halfway across the world where millions can admire it? Or remain with the descendants of those who made it, even if local facilities lack climate-controlled displays? There's no easy answer. In 2018, a museum in Brazil sparked outrage by exhibiting funeral urns against the wishes of the Ashorini people, who viewed them as sacred vessels holding spirits, not display pieces. Yet when researchers repatriated artifacts to the Kayapo tribe, elders worked with archaeologists to create a community museum, blending modern preservation with traditional reverence. These aren't abstract dilemmas, they're choices that echo through generations. Then there's the land itself. Satellite technology can pinpoint ruins beneath indigenous territories without permission, raising questions about who controls access to knowledge. In one controversial case, a team scanned sacred sites in Belize without consulting local Maya communities, sparking protests over digital colonialism. Contrast that with projects like the Kuakuro-led excavations in the Xingu, where elders guide archaeologists to locations mentioned in oral histories, ensuring discoveries honor cultural protocols. The difference: consent, not just legal permission, but meaningful collaboration where indigenous voices shape the narrative from the start. Perhaps the most profound ethical question isn't about ownership, but perspective. Western science often treats ancient civilizations as puzzles to solve, measuring their sophistication by familiar benchmarks, monumental architecture, written records, centralized power. But what if this jungle empire's greatness lay in qualities harder to quantify? Their ability to thrive without deforestation, their decentralized governance, their kinship with ecosystems we're only now learning to value. By imposing our frameworks, do we risk missing their most radical lessons? The path forward demands humility. Some researchers now advocate for slow archaeology, pausing excavations until local communities decide if and how to proceed. Others propose hybrid models like the digital reconstructions used in Guatemala's Homel project, where scans let Maya descendants walk through virtual temples without disturbing physical sites. The goal isn't to halt discovery, but to reframe it not as extraction, but as dialogue, because this lost empire's greatest legacy might not be its roads or plazas, but the chance to redefine how we honor the past while building a more just future. The jungle kept these secrets safe for centuries. Now it's watching to see if we're worthy of them. LiDAR may have lifted the veil on this lost jungle empire, but it's just the opening act in a technological revolution reshaping archaeology. Now drones buzz like mechanical hummingbirds over excavation sites, their high-resolution cameras capturing angles too perilous for human climbers. In one recent survey, a drone hovering above the Xingu River spotted the faint outline of a circular plaza obscured by centuries of growth, a feature ground teams had missed entirely. These flying eyes don't just document, they reveal context, showing how settlements nestled into the landscape or how roads curved to avoid sacred groves. And when paired with AI algorithms trained to recognize patterns, they can flag potential sites in hours that might have taken years to identify manually. But the real magic happens when these tools converge. Take 3D modeling. By feeding drone imagery and LiDAR data into specialized software, researchers can now reconstruct entire cityscapes with jaw-dropping accuracy. One team working in Bolivia used this tech to digitally rebuild a ceremonial complex, complete with towering wooden temples and elevated walkways. The result: A virtual time machine that lets historians and the public wander streets last trodden 800 years ago. You can stand in the center of a plaza and watch the sunrise align with an altar, or trace the path of a trader carrying obsidian from distant mountains. It's not just visualization, it's immersion, collapsing centuries into a single click. Artificial intelligence adds another layer, sifting through mountains of data for connections no human might spot. When archaeologists in Colombia uploaded thousands of pottery fragments to an AI system, it identified recurring motifs linking sites over 300 miles apart, evidence of a shared cultural network no one had pieced together before. Other algorithms analyze soil chemistry to predict where undiscovered terra preta fields might lie, or scan satellite imagery for subtle vegetation changes signaling buried structures. These aren't just tools, they're collaborators offering insights at speeds and scales that redefine what's possible. Yet the most profound impact might be democratization. Apps now let indigenous communities map ancestral lands using smartphone cameras, preserving oral histories alongside hard data. Virtual reality tours beam jungle ruins into classrooms worldwide, making history tactile for students who'll never set foot in the Amazon. And open-source databases allow researchers from Lima to London to collaborate in real time, pooling knowledge like never before. Technology isn't just uncovering the past, it's ensuring its lessons reach everyone, from scientists to the descendants of those who built this empire. The irony is poetic. A civilization that left no written records now speaks through petabytes of digital data. Their roads, once hidden under roots, glow on screens across the globe. Their reservoirs, long silted over, guide modern engineers designing sustainable water systems. With every pixel and algorithm, the gap between ancient and modern narrows, proving that even the greatest mysteries yield when curiosity and innovation join forces. And as these tools evolve, quantum computing, nanosensors, who knows what's next? One thing's certain, the jungle hasn't given up all its secrets yet. Not even close. The jungle doesn't surrender its secrets easily. Even with satellites mapping every inch from above, the reality on the ground is a battle against nature itself. Imagine sweltering through 95% humidity, your boots sinking into mud that clings like glue, while mosquitoes swarm any exposed skin. Now picture doing that while carrying delicate equipment, watching for venomous snakes underfoot, and knowing a sudden downpour could flood your excavation site in minutes. This isn't just archaeology, it's an endurance test where every shovel of dirt feels like a negotiation with the forest. Wildlife adds another layer of chaos. Howler monkeys scream warnings from the canopy as teams work, their cries echoing like alarms. Jaguar tracks appear overnight near camp, a reminder of who's really in charge here. One researcher in Belize recounts the time a troop of spider monkeys raided their supply tent, scattering notes and stealing a bag of trail mix like tiny, furry bandits. But the real saboteurs are smaller. Termites that devour wooden artifacts before they can be preserved, fungi that bloom overnight on ceramic shards, and ants that build highways through carefully labeled grids. Then there's the terrain itself, those elegant causeways visible from space. On the ground, they're often buried under centuries of leaf litter and tangled roots. Clearing a single 10-foot section can take days of backbreaking work with machetes and brushes, only to uncover a stretch of packed earth that crumbles at the slightest touch. Rivers that once nourished this empire now thwart archaeologists, rising without warning, swallowing dig sites whole, or stranding teams for weeks when boats can't navigate swollen rapids. But the most relentless adversary isn't nature, it's time. Every hour, an estimated 3 football fields of Amazon rainforest vanish to bulldozers and fires. Looters follow the deforestation, armed with metal detectors and black market buyers waiting for priceless artifacts. One team in Bolivia arrived at a newly scanned site only to find trenches dug haphazardly, ceramic vessels smashed for quick access to burial offerings, and a child's skeleton scattered by treasure hunters. The race isn't just to discover history anymore, it's to save it from being erased twice. Yet in this crucible of challenges, every hard-won discovery feels like a triumph. A polished jade bead glinting in the mud becomes a treasure. A posthole filled with charcoal transforms into proof of a long-gone home. These moments, fleeting, fragile, are why archaeologists keep returning. Because beneath the sweat and the setbacks, there's a truth far more compelling than any satellite image. The jungle may test them at every turn, but it also rewards perseverance with whispers from a world we're only beginning to understand. And sometimes, just sometimes, those whispers rise to a shout. This lost empire beneath the Amazon's canopy does more than rewrite regional history. It cracks open a door to reimagining human civilization itself. For too long, textbooks painted the Amazon as a green void, a place where complex societies couldn't take root. Now, we're staring at proof that challenges not just what we know about the Americas, but about humanity's capacity to adapt and thrive in Earth's most demanding environments. If a civilization of this scale flourished here, what other jungles from the Congo Basin to the islands of Southeast Asia might be hiding similar secrets beneath their leaves? Consider the parallels already emerging. In Cambodia, LiDAR revealed Mahendraparvata, a sprawling Anka-era city swallowed by vines. In Central America, scans uncovered lost Maya settlements under Guatemala's Patane rainforest. Each discovery shares eerie similarities with the Amazonian empire: raised roads to combat flooding, intricate water management systems, and urban centers designed in harmony with their ecosystems. These aren't isolated flukes, they're blueprints for how societies can and did turn perceived wastelands into heartlands. The implications ripple across disciplines, from archaeology to climate science. Modern engineers study these ancient reservoirs for drought-proofing cities, while agronomists analyze terra preta to revive degraded soils. But the most profound shift is conceptual. For centuries, Western scholarship measured civilization by old-world yardsticks: pyramids, written records, centralized empires. This jungle empire defies those benchmarks, proving sophistication isn't monolithic. Its builders left no stone colossi, yet their earthworks rival the precision of Roman aqueducts. They may have had no written language, but their landscape engineering speaks volumes. Suddenly, the cradle of civilization isn't confined to the Fertile Crescent or the Indus Valley. It's a global phenomenon, with chapters still buried in places we least expect. The discovery also rewires our understanding of connectivity. Trade items found in the Amazon Andean obsidian, Caribbean shells hint at a pan-continental network long before European ships arrived. Similar finds in Southeast Asia suggest maritime trade linked rainforest cultures across vast distances. These weren't isolated tribes, they were participants in a vibrant, ancient globalization, exchanging goods, ideas, and technologies across jungles and oceans. Now the race is on to apply these lessons elsewhere. Scientists are re-examining oral histories from Papua New Guinea's tribes, where legends describe cities in the clouds. In Central Africa, satellite anomalies suggest geometric patterns beneath the Congo's canopy. Even colder climates hold potential: Siberia's taiga, for instance, where nomadic peoples might have left subtler traces. The Amazon's empire has become a Rosetta Stone, teaching us how to read landscapes we once dismissed as empty. Perhaps the greatest revelation isn't about the past, but the future. As climate change reshapes our world, these jungle cities offer a masterclass in resilience. They thrived without clear-cutting forests or depleting resources, adapting rather than conquering. In their terraces and canals, we see solutions to modern crises: flood management, soil regeneration, decentralized urban planning. The empires we once overlooked may hold the very wisdom we now desperately need. This isn't just archaeology anymore. It's a mirror reflecting our own precarious moment, and a reminder that history's lost chapters might be the ones we should have been studying all along. The moment those first satellite images surfaced, the world leaned in. Not just archaeologists, but everyone from school kids to Hollywood producers. News outlets splashed headlines like "Lost Amazonian Metropolis Found," while documentaries raced to film expeditions hacking through the undergrowth, their cameras capturing every spider-covered artifact and wide-eyed researcher. Something about this discovery struck a nerve deeper than your average history update. Maybe it's the romance of a civilization rising and falling unseen, like a play performed to an empty theater. Or maybe it's the detective story thrill of piecing together clues from laser scans and pottery shards, each fragment a whisper from people who left no written records. Think about the myths that stick with us: Atlantis, El Dorado, the Kingdom of Prester John. They all tap into that same itch, the idea that somewhere just beyond the edge of the map, wonders still wait to be found. This jungle empire isn't fiction, though. It's real, tangible, and its revelation comes with a twist. Unlike tales of golden cities, this story flips the script. Here, grandeur wasn't built from conquest and glittering treasure, but from collaboration with nature. That shift fascinates us just as much as any hoard of gold. In an age of climate anxiety, their terraced fields and self-cleaning reservoirs feel less like relics and more like urgent lessons. Public obsession isn't just idle curiosity, it's fuel. After National Geographic aired its first special on the findings, universities reported a surge in archaeology applications. Crowdfunding campaigns for further LiDAR surveys smashed their goals in days. Even pop culture caught the bug. A hit video game spun a storyline around green cities inspired by the discovery, while fashion designers riffed on motifs from scanned pottery patterns. This buzz creates a virtuous cycle. More interest means more funding, which leads to more discoveries, which ignites fresh fascination. Yet beneath the excitement lies a deeper question: why now? Why does this empire, hidden for centuries, resonate so powerfully in the 21st century? Part of it's technological. We're dazzled by satellites uncovering what boots on the ground couldn't. But there's also a cultural reckoning. As we rethink colonialism's legacy, a civilization that thrived without pyramids or palaces challenges Eurocentric views of advanced societies. Their story isn't just history, it's a mirror reflecting our own struggles with sustainability and equity. The documentaries keep coming, the headlines keep spinning, because this isn't just about the past. It's about who we are and who we might yet become. Every discovery that rewrites history seems to attract wild theories, and this lost jungle empire is no exception. Some online forums buzz with claims that only alien architects could have designed such precise earthworks, while others insist the civilization must have possessed futuristic tech now buried under the vines. It's human nature to spin mysteries into myths, but the truth, grounded in soil samples and satellite data, is far more impressive. These builders weren't visitors from another world. They were masters of their environment, wielding a deep understanding of materials, hydrology, and astronomy that needs no extraterrestrial explanation. Take the so-called impossible causeways. Critics argue that without metal tools or wheels, constructing roads spanning dozens of miles would have been unthinkable. Yet modern experiments show otherwise. Using replicas of stone axes and fire-hardened digging sticks, researchers cleared and packed jungle paths at rates matching the empire's scale within a few years. The real secret wasn't alien tech. It was communal labor and generations of trial and error. Similarly, those mystical reservoir systems align perfectly with seasonal water flows, their layouts mirroring indigenous fishing traps still used by Amazonian tribes today. Advanced, absolutely. Supernatural, hardly. Then there's the terra preta soil, often mislabeled as an ancient supermaterial. While its fertility is remarkable, scientists have recreated it using charcoal, pottery shards, and organic waste materials readily available to any farming society. The magic wasn't in some lost technology, but in observation. These farmers noticed how burnt areas yielded better crops, then refined that knowledge over centuries. Even the empire's disappearance fuels speculation, with some blaming mythical catastrophes rather than the documented megadroughts and ecological strains visible in sediment cores. The danger of these myths isn't just inaccuracy, it's erasure. By attributing the empire's achievements to outsiders or sci-fi forces, we rob its people of their ingenuity. Imagine dismissing Roman aqueducts as alien handiwork instead of celebrating the engineers who designed them. This civilization deserves the same respect. Their roads, reservoirs, and fields weren't gifts from the stars. They were triumphs of human persistence, shaped by hands that understood the jungle's rhythms intimately. That's not to strip away wonder. If anything, the reality is more awe-inspiring than any fiction. These builders didn't need ray guns or anti-gravity devices. They had something better: generations of knowledge passed down through trial, error, and keen attention to the land. Their legacy isn't a puzzle to solve with wild guesses, but a testament to what humans can achieve when they work with nature rather than against it. And that truth, etched into the very soil of the Amazon, is more extraordinary than any myth. Uncovering these ruins was just the first step. Now comes the far harder task of keeping them intact. The moment sunlight hits centuries-old earthen walls or rainwater seeps into buried artifacts, the clock starts ticking. Exposure alone can erase fragile paint pigments in weeks, while fluctuating humidity warps wooden relics beyond recognition. One excavation in the Xingu region saw a beautifully preserved ceremonial mask carved from lightweight balsa wood begin to split and curl within days of being unearthed. The irony is brutal. After surviving half a millennium hidden in the jungle, these treasures can crumble in our hands within months. Looters pose an even more immediate threat. With black markets paying top dollar for pre-Columbian artifacts, illegal diggers swarm newly discovered sites like ants to honey. Just last year, authorities intercepted a shipment of stolen funerary urns near the Bolivian border, their intricate geometric patterns destined for private collectors overseas. The damage isn't just to the objects, it's to history itself. Every looted piece is a missing word in the empire's story, ripping context away from the very places meant to help us understand it. Tourism brings its own dilemmas. While visitor revenue could fund preservation, uncontrolled foot traffic erodes ancient pathways and introduces microbes from modern shoes that degrade organic materials. At Peru's Chachapoya sites, thousands of tourists touching cloud forest ruins transferred skin oils that accelerated stone erosion. The solution: lessons from Cambodia's Angkor Wat, where elevated walkways and timed tickets distribute visitor impact. Some Amazonian sites now experiment with invisible tourism, a virtual reality station set up in nearby villages, letting travelers explore digital reconstructions without ever stepping on fragile ground. Nature itself is both preserver and destroyer. The same vines that shielded ruins for centuries now threaten to pry apart masonry as they grow. Engineers are testing biodegradable sprays to slow root penetration without harming the ecosystem, while botanists study which plants stabilize rather than damage earthen structures. Even climate change plays a role. Rising temperatures dry out soils that once kept wooden artifacts waterlogged and preserved, forcing conservators to develop new humidity-controlled enclosures. The most promising efforts blend old wisdom with new tech. Indigenous guards patrol ancestral lands using drone surveillance, while 3D printing replicates fragile artifacts for display, allowing originals to stay protected in climate-controlled storage. In a groundbreaking collaboration, the Kwikuro tribe now trains as site stewards, merging traditional knowledge of jungle materials with modern conservation science. Their approach, not just preserving ruins as relics, but reviving ancestral techniques, replanting terra preta gardens, maintaining ancient canals, so the land remembers what it once was. This isn't just about saving the past, it's about honoring a living legacy. Every reservoir restored becomes a blueprint for drought-proof agriculture today. Every causeway stabilized offers lessons in flood-resilient infrastructure. The empire's greatest gift wasn't just what it built, but how it built with sustainability woven into every brick and furrow. Protecting these sites means more than shielding them from rain and thieves. It means listening to what they still have to teach us. The jungle still holds its cards close, but archaeologists aren't done dealing. Armed with LiDAR maps that highlight dozens of unexplored sites, teams are gearing up for what could be the most revealing digs yet, one tantalizing target. A cluster of massive platforms near the Tapajos River, their shapes too symmetrical to be natural. Some researchers suspect these could be the foundations of a royal compound, perhaps even the palace of the empire's elusive rulers. Unlike the ceremonial plazas found so far, these structures sit atop artificial mounds 30 feet high, their summits flattened like altars. If proven, it would shatter another assumption, that this society lacked centralized leadership. But palaces aren't the only prize. Satellite anomalies along the empire's causeways hint at subterranean chambers, possible tombs, or ritual crypts. In other ancient cultures, royal burials held not just bodies but treasure troves of artifacts, jewelry, weapons, ceremonial garb. Imagine uncovering a tomb sealed for centuries, its contents preserved by the Amazon's humidity. A single intact funerary mask or scepter could reveal volumes about the empire's hierarchy, trade networks, or spiritual beliefs. Teams are already testing ground-penetrating radar at these sites, listening for the hollow echoes of hidden spaces. The real game changer, though, might lie in the mundane. A midden heap, a trash pile, could tell us more about daily life than any golden artifact. Discarded pottery shards might bear residue of forgotten recipes. Broken tools could show where patterns revealing their uses. One upcoming dig focuses on a suspected workshop area where LiDAR detected concentrations of magnetic soil, a sign of intense heat, possibly from kilns or metalworking. Metal would be a bombshell. Current evidence suggests the empire used stone and wood exclusively. Then there's the puzzle of the empire's edges. Scans show causeways suddenly terminating in what's now dense forest, suggesting territories yet to be mapped. Did this civilization clash with neighbors, trade with distant cultures? A new international collaboration plans to scan the borders where the Amazon meets the Andes, searching for frontier outposts or trade hubs. Early drone flights have already spotted unusual stone alignments too regular to be natural, yet unlike anything seen in the empire's core. Of course, every excavation is a race against time. Looters aren't the only threat. climate change is drying out soils that once preserved organic materials, and deforestation exposes fragile sites to erosion. Archaeologists now face a brutal calculus: dig fast and risk damaging context, or dig meticulously and risk losing sites entirely. Some teams are turning to micro-excavations, removing only tiny soil cores for lab analysis, leaving the bulk undisturbed for future technologies we can't yet imagine. The next decade could rewrite history if the jungle allows it. With each field season, we're not just uncovering a lost empire, we're learning how to listen to landscapes that have been whispering all along. And somewhere beneath those roots and vines, the right find a king's tomb, a scribe's tablet, even a child's toy might finally let us hear their voice clearly. The echoes of this jungle empire's rise and fall aren't just whispers from antiquity, they're urgent conversations with our modern world. Consider their mastery of water management, a feat that feels ripped from today's climate crisis playbook. While contemporary cities pour billions into concrete flood barriers, these ancient builders worked with nature's rhythms, designing reservoirs that doubled as fish farms and elevating roads to function as aqueducts during rains. Their terra preta soil, a self-regenerating blend of charcoal and compost, stands in stark contrast to our reliance on chemical fertilizers that degrade farmland. In an era of soil depletion, their methods offer a blueprint. Patches of this dark earth remain fertile after 500 years of abandonment, outlasting modern agricultural land by centuries. Urban planners could learn equally profound lessons from the empire's decentralized design. Unlike the congested megacities choking on their own sprawl, this civilization distributed its population across interconnected hubs linked by causeways, a medieval precursor to today's smart city concepts. Their settlements followed topography rather than flattening it, with buildings oriented to catch breezes and shade interiors naturally. Compare that to glass and steel towers that guzzle energy for cooling, and the contrast is jarring. Even their waste systems put modern efforts to shame. Middens excavated near residential areas show meticulous sorting, with food waste destined for compost and ceramics crushed into pathways. This wasn't just sustainability, it was circular economics in action. Yet their story holds darker parallels too. Sediment cores reveal a chilling sequence. As the empire expanded, pollen records show native hardwoods giving way to monocrop fields. Then, right before collapse, charcoal layers spike evidence of desperate forest clearing as droughts tightened their grip. Sound familiar? Modern deforestation rates in the Amazon now mirror those pre-collapse patterns, with satellite data showing similar tipping points being crossed. The empire's fate suggests a grim equation. When societies overshoot their environment's capacity to recover, even the most ingenious adaptations fail. Perhaps the most poignant lesson lies in their disappearance. Unlike the dramatic ruins of Rome or Ankara, this empire didn't fall to invaders or earthquakes. It dissolved slowly, quietly, as generations chose to walk away from unsustainable practices. Some archaeologists see this not as failure, but as radical adaptation, a return to smaller, mobile communities better suited to changing conditions. In our era of climate migration and abandoned cities, their example asks uncomfortable questions. When is resilience about rebuilding, and when is it about letting go? The jungle's silent classrooms still teach, if we're willing to listen. Those terraces whisper about working with slopes instead of against them. The canals murmur strategies for turning floods into resources. Even the empire's vanishing act carries wisdom about humility, about reading the land's limits, about civilizations that endure not by dominating nature, but by dancing with it. As satellites keep uncovering these forgotten classrooms, the real test isn't whether we admire their ingenuity, but whether we're brave enough to apply it. After all, history rarely repeats, but it always rhymes, and right now, the jungle's verse is calling. Unraveling the secrets of this lost jungle empire isn't a solo endeavor. It's a symphony of expertise, where each discipline brings its own instrument to the ensemble. Archaeologists wield trowels and brushes, meticulously uncovering artifacts layer by layer, while historians sift through colonial records and indigenous oral traditions, searching for echoes of the past in faded ink and spoken word. Meanwhile, technologists hover over screens, interpreting the dance of laser pulses from satellites and drones, transforming raw data into maps that guide the next dig. But perhaps the most vital voices come from the descendants of this very civilization, the local communities whose ancestors walked these causeways and tended these fields. Their oral histories aren't just folklore, they're living maps passed down through generations, pinpointing sacred springs, burial grounds, and forgotten plazas with uncanny accuracy. Take the groundbreaking work in the Xingu region, where Kwekuro elders led researchers straight to a ceremonial site mentioned in tribal songs for centuries, a place outsiders had dismissed as myth until LiDAR scans confirmed its existence. Or the collaboration in Bolivia, where Quechua farmers recognized the patterns of ancient terraces still visible in their own fields, helping archaeologists trace irrigation systems invisible to satellite imagery alone. These partnerships aren't just convenient, they're transformative. Where traditional archaeology might misinterpret a raised mound as a defensive wall, local knowledge reveals it as a festival ground, its purpose etched in stories told around fires for hundreds of years. The fusion of high-tech and traditional wisdom has birthed entirely new methodologies. In Belize, scientists now pair LiDAR surveys with elder-guided story mappings, overlaying oral histories onto digital terrain models to predict where undiscovered structures might lie. In Peru, linguists work alongside shamans to decode symbols on pottery, finding parallels between ancient motifs and modern rituals. Even conservation efforts benefit from this synergy. Indigenous techniques for preserving wood and textiles, honed over millennia, are now paired with climate-controlled storage to protect artifacts exposed after centuries underground. But collaboration isn't without its friction. Western science often prioritizes peer-reviewed papers over community consent, while local knowledge can clash with academic timelines. One poignant example comes from Ecuador, where a planned excavation of a sacred mound was delayed for years until researchers agreed to let tribal elders conduct ceremonies first, a compromise that ultimately revealed burials arranged in constellations matching the group's creation myths. Such moments underscore a growing realization. Solving these ancient riddles isn't just about sharing data, but about respecting sovereignty. Who decides what gets excavated? Who interprets the findings? The answers shape not just what we learn, but how we honor the people who came before. The payoff for this collective effort is more than just academic. Every joint discovery strengthens cultural ties, empowering indigenous groups to reclaim narratives long distorted by outsiders. When a teenage Ashaninka girl in Peru recognized a weaving pattern on a newly unearthed textile, identical to those her grandmother still makes, it wasn't just a breakthrough for archaeologists. It was a lifeline between past and present, proof that this empire's legacy isn't frozen in time, but alive in the hands of its heirs. As the search continues, one truth becomes clear. The jungle's secrets won't be unlocked by any single genius or gadget, but by the messy, beautiful alchemy of many minds working as one. From the lab technician analyzing soil samples to the elder recounting a centuries-old legend, each perspective is a thread in the tapestry. And as those threads weave together, they're not just reconstructing a lost civilization. they're redefining what it means to explore history with humility, curiosity, and shared purpose. The real treasure isn't just what we find in the dirt, but how we learn to listen to one another along the way. The jungle doesn't give up its secrets easily. It demands sweat, patience, and sometimes sheer stubbornness from those who dare to search. Picture Dr. Elena Martinez, an archaeologist from Sao Paulo, wading through waist-deep swamp water, her backpack crammed with soil samples and a machete dangling from her belt. She spent 7 field seasons in the Amazon, battling botflies and dysentery, all for the chance to uncover a single post hole that might reveal how a long-vanished family lived. Or take Professor Raj Patel, a LiDAR specialist who spent months writing algorithms to filter out modern deforestation damage from satellite scans, painstakingly reconstructing ancient causeways pixel by pixel. These aren't just researchers, they're detectives piecing together a puzzle where most of the pieces have turned to dust. Then there's the quiet heroism of local guides like Joe, a member of the Munduruku tribe, whose grandfather taught him to read the jungle's subtle signs, a certain vine that grows where the earth has been disturbed, or a tree whose roots coil around buried pottery. Without Joe's knowledge, half the digs in his region would have missed their targets entirely. He bridges 2 worlds, translating satellite coordinates into landmarks his team can find beneath the green chaos. And let's not forget the historians like Dr. Amina Diallo, who spends her days cross-referencing 16th century missionary diaries with oral histories from the Kayapo people, searching for fleeting mentions of cities that shone before the Great Fires. Every breakthrough hinges on moments of human connection, like the time a Kuakuro elder, hearing archaeologists debate a strange cluster of mounds, casually remarked, "Oh, that's where the moon dancers practiced." His offhand comment unlocked the purpose of a site that had baffled scientists for years. Or the graduate student who noticed a pattern in ceramic shards, fingerprints preserved in the clay, leading to the realization that children helped craft ceremonial vessels. These aren't just data points, they're intimate glimpses into lives lived centuries ago, resurrected through patience and collaboration. The work is as much about trust as it is about trowels and tech. In remote villages, researchers sip bitter manioc beer with community leaders, listening for hours to stories that might hold clues. A throwaway legend about a river that once flowed backward could explain an abandoned settlement's water system. A folk song mentioning the place where the stones sing might pinpoint a quarry. This isn't extraction, it's exchange. Scientists share their scans, and locals share knowledge passed down through generations, a partnership that reshapes both sides' understanding of the past. Yet for all the camaraderie, the work exacts a toll. Field teams endure weeks of isolation, missing birthdays and anniversaries back home. One botanist recalls the guilt of watching her daughter's first steps via a grainy satellite phone video. Others grapple with the ethical weight of disturbing burial sites, knowing each artifact lifted is a thread pulled from the fabric of someone's ancestry. The most profound moments often come unscripted, like the hushed silence when a team uncovered a child's toy, a tiny clay monkey, and realized they were the first to hold it in 800 years. What fuels them isn't fame or treasure, it's the sheer thrill of the chase, the way a single shard of pottery can overturn decades of assumptions, the way a grandmother's story told fireside might align perfectly with a drone's aerial scan. This isn't just archaeology, it's a conversation across centuries where every participant, scientist, storyteller, or student adds a verse to the epic. And as long as there are mysteries beneath the leaves, there'll be people willing to brave the thorns and the storms to hear what the jungle has to say. Even with satellite eyes piercing the jungle and boots on the ground unearthing artifacts, this lost empire guards its deepest secrets fiercely. Take the abrupt abandonment. How does a civilization that mastered flood-resistant roads and self-sustaining farms simply walk away? Sediment cores tell part of the story. Layers of pollen shift abruptly from crops to wild plants, suggesting a rapid exodus. But was it drought that dried up their reservoirs or something more insidious? In one plaza, archaeologists found cooking fires left burning, pots still perched on hearths as if dinner was interrupted mid-meal. The absence of human remains rules out violence, but the scene feels eerily reminiscent of Pompeii, a snapshot of sudden departure frozen in time. Then there's the enigma of their name. Modern labels like Amazonian Urban Complex feel clinical, lifeless. The Kuikuro call them Kuhakugu, but was that their true name or just a later label? Without written records, we're left with fragments, a pottery shard bearing a symbol that might be a glyph, or a Spanish conquistador's diary mentioning a people who built roads through the trees. The irony stings. We can map their causeways with laser precision, yet their own word for themselves slips through our fingers like mist. Some mysteries tantalize with near answers. Take the Golden City legends. Satellite scans did reveal a plaza lined with strange metallic deposits, but when researchers reached the site, they found not treasure, but flecks of pyrite fool's gold embedded in ceremonial tiles. Was this a deliberate illusion to awe visitors, or proof that the empire traded for distant minerals? Similarly, the purpose of certain structures eludes us. A circular platform near the Xingu River aligns with solstice sunrises, yet lacks the ritual artifacts typical of temples. Could it have been an observatory, a marketplace, or something more mundane, an ancient sports arena? The greatest unanswered question isn't about their past, but our future. As climate change triggers Amazonian droughts mirroring those that may have toppled this empire, their story shifts from archaeological curiosity to urgent parable. Their reservoirs and terraces worked for centuries until they didn't. What invisible tipping point did they cross, and are we barreling toward our own version of that moment? The jungle isn't just hiding answers about them, it's whispering warnings about us. Perhaps that's why this civilization captivates us so deeply. In their silence, they speak volumes about resilience, about hubris, about the fragility of even the grandest human endeavors. Every unearthed potsherd, every mapped causeway pulls us deeper into their mystery, yet the heart of the story remains just out of reach, and maybe that's how it should be. Some truths aren't meant to be dug up, only pondered, like the way morning fog clings to those ancient plazas, as if the jungle itself isn't quite ready to let go. The discovery of this hidden empire beneath the Amazon's emerald canopy isn't just an archaeological breakthrough, it's a mirror reflecting humanity's relentless drive to uncover the unknown. Think about it, centuries of explorers hacked through these same jungles, oblivious to the civilization beneath their feet, until technology finally gave us the keys to see what was always there. Those first satellite images didn't just reveal ruins, they shattered assumptions, proving that even in an age of Google Earth and space probes, our planet still guards jaw-dropping secrets. And yet, for all our lasers and algorithms, the real magic lies in the partnership between cutting-edge tech and timeless human curiosity. The grad student squinting at soil samples under a microscope, the pilot steering a drone through storm clouds, the elder pointing to a seemingly ordinary grove and saying, "Dig here." This empire's reemergence also rewrites what we consider lost. These builders didn't vanish. They left behind a landscape so meticulously engineered that modern farmers still reap harvests from their terra preta patches. Their reservoirs, though clogged with centuries of silt, still alter water flows today. In that sense, they never truly disappeared. They just folded back into the forest, their legacy woven into the land itself. It's a humbling reminder that collapse isn't always an end. Sometimes it's a transformation, a shift from monuments to memory, from empire to ecology. What's exhilarating isn't just what we've found, but what's left to discover. For every causeway mapped by LiDAR, there are a dozen more lurking beneath uncharted valleys. For every decoded pottery pattern, 100 symbols still defy interpretation. And beyond the Amazon, similar mysteries whisper from other jungles, the vine-choked temples of Cambodia's Greater Angkor, the rumored white cities of Honduras, the terraced ruins of Ethiopia's highlands. Each represents a puzzle waiting for its own technological Rosetta Stone, whether it's a high-powered artifact analysis or quantum sensors that could one day detect buried structures without a single shovel stroke. But the most profound lesson here isn't about the past, it's about perspective. This civilization thrived by observing, adapting, and collaborating with nature rather than conquering it. In an era of climate crises, their ghostly reservoirs and regenerative farms feel less like relics and more like roadmaps. They challenge us to ask, how will future archaeologists judge our cities? Will they marvel at our ingenuity, or puzzle over why we ignored civilizations that had already solved the problems we're just now confronting? So as the jungle slowly yields its secrets, one laser scan and soil sample at a time, we're left with a thrilling possibility. If an empire this vast could hide in plain sight for 500 years, what else might be out there? Maybe the next great discovery isn't waiting in some remote wilderness, but right under our feet, invisible until the moment we learn how to look. And that's the real adventure. Not just uncovering lost worlds, but realizing how much we still have to learn about